Okay, next segment is that obstacle is very stubborn. So what that means is I have to get right up next to it. Okay, so there goes the edge. And it did not seem like a major obstacle at the time. So that's why I did not remove a lot of the edge to begin with. In hindsight, I probably should have removed more of the edge, but I did not expect the obstacle to be that stubborn. Okay. All right. Is it possible that I abraded too much? Yes. But in this case, with this material, I don't think abrading too much is a bad thing. I think over abrading will still get you some effective results. Under abrading is the bad thing on this material. Now that messes up my, width to thickness ratio when I remove a lot of the width. So it no longer looks thin. But with this material, I don't think it's going to be all that easy to make a thin point without a whole lot of luck. So we're going to try to make it as thin as possible without risking too much. I'll have to focus because I don't have much chances from here on in, because I don't have many chances because it's starting to get way too narrow. I've got to make sure I can do this. In the next few strikes. Everything is in preparation for that. Okay, this work on the tips, or on the tip, and down here, everything is in preparation for this flake here. Okay, even if I start working on the other side, etc., etc. Still, everything's in preparation to remove that, even though I'm working down here. Okay, okay. Yes, even these flakes here are in preparation for that removal. Why? Because I want to make sure everything else is just right. Not too much weight in places that could cause a snap in half. And give me an opportunity maybe to remove a flake from this direction. So I've got to, plan B is, remove a bunch of long flakes from this direction, which is not a great plan, but it is a possibility if that doesn't work. And I am going to switch to a smaller diameter because obviously the bigger diameter is not working that well. It could be because the force is not concentrated enough. It could be, I don't know for sure. I don't know much for sure in flint knapping. There's more mystery than there is certainty. Okay. Let me take my glove off because sometimes that interferes with the feel of the flaking. Let's see. Yeah, that was an extremely hard hit. So was that. It seems to be working to concentrate the force because I did remove a good amount of that obstacle. But it's scary. Yeah, there it goes. So concentrating the force in a smaller area is working. Yeah. Didn't work perfectly because the flakes were not that long. But oh well. And now I can remove flakes from the other side and proceed with the final thinning after I get the... I'm almost done with the preliminary thinning. Yeah. Once I get the preliminary thinning out of the way, I can do the final thinning. It doesn't look all that great. There's still a lump right there. We'll see. All right, so what's left on the preliminary thinning is just that lump. That's lump on this side is the only thing left on the preliminary thinning. After I get rid of this lump, it's going to be the final thinning. How do I know? Only from experience. It doesn't really make sense to some people because they may be thinking I'm already into the final thinning, but no, I'm not yet. And some people might think, well, I got a long way to go on the preliminary thinning before I get to final thinning. So it's all a matter of opinion. But hopefully I've divided these stages into reasonable sections. Okay. I like to go back and forth between the rough abrader and the not so rough, mainly because the rough abrader will abrade faster, obviously. I'm already getting tired of this piece, and I don't want to get fatigued yet. I can sharpen it when I'm tired of it, but I cannot do the final thinning if I'm tired of this piece. I've got to be fresh to do the final thinning. I still have to have that feeling that, oh, it's still not getting on my nerves. Right now it's on the edge of that. It's starting to get on my nerves just barely, but I can probably do the final thinning without worrying too much. Okay. Yeah, I've got to focus. That was an extremely hard hit, just in case you don't know. So was that one. I have to hit harder than I would with the larger flaker, and it tends to bend the tip when I do that on the smaller diameter flaker, but I think it was necessary. Alright, so I risked snapping it in half just then. Alright, so that was good though. I think it was lucky that I did not have a bad result. Okay. Okay. I'm going to think about the symmetry here eventually. Alright, so the primary thinning is done. Yeah, with that flake removal, the primary thinning is done. Now it's a matter of making it symmetrical and do the final thinning. I probably should take a little pause because the mindset is changing. Okay. I don't need to be using the same strategies as I was just a minute ago to do the final thinning. Okay, so the difference is I need to be more focused, more persnickety, more careful, and more of everything to do the final thinning, which I'm not going to do much. All I see is just this lump here that needs to be dealt with. Everything else can stay. The only thing that can't stay is this lump here. I don't like it. Yeah. All right. And maybe some other little lumps. Okay. All right. I don't see a good opportunity to remove that, but I am going to remove it. Hopefully. If it remains, if the nut, well, let's see, how do I explain this? If I don't see any good opportunities, I won't remove it. I'll just leave it. Why? Because this piece is so delicate that I'm afraid to go much further with it. Now, there might be some artifacts made from this that are thinner than this. But we don't know how many pieces were attempted before getting that piece, before the artifact was made. We don't know how many pieces were broken or not broken in the case of an artifact made from something like this that's really, really thin. So trying to say that I'm doing it the way they used to do it is probably going to be wrong. Or trying to do it like we think they used to do it, it's going to be wrong. Probably. Okay, so if there is an artifact made of this stuff that's really, really thin, from the experience on this particular piece, oops, I broke the tip. From the experience on this particular piece, I'm thinking that a really thin piece is a matter of luck and not a matter of common skill. I think it would be either uncommon skill or uncommon luck or both. Yeah, I broke the tip off because I was not as careful as I should have been. I had to be more careful with everything. Explaining it is making me less careful with it. Just so you know. That did not work very well. Now, I didn't explain very much there because it's just more of the same as before. I just have to be a lot more careful. And I can't be more careful and explain at the same time. So hopefully the previous explanations were good enough to give you an idea of why I'm doing certain things. Alright, so that's the end of the secondary or final thinning. Yeah, I'm not going to risk thinning it any further. It started as a much larger piece, so if I wanted to have it remain a larger piece, it would need to remain thick. But trying to thin it down further yielded me this size. So that's something, if I was going to make a lot of these points, or a lot of points from this material, something to keep in mind. Okay, the ratio, and I didn't measure it beforehand as far as the total length. Let's see what the ratio right now is going to be. Let's 32 right there, so maybe it's easily divided by 6. So it's like a little bit better than 5-to-1 ratio. I would not go any thinner than 5-to-1. 6-to-1 is average for me, and I don't want to go to 6-to-1 on this stuff. So 4-to-1, 6, and 5-to-1 seems to be the ratio for this stuff. And, you know, so far. Suppose if you get better at working it, you can go thinner, but I don't know if I would go thinner than 5-to-1. Yeah. Alright, so let's put some pressure flaking on here before we go on to the next final segment. I could just use a lot of indirect percussion on it, but I want to try out the pressure flakers on this. I got a new pressure flaker in here somewhere. Oh yeah, here it is. I bought this at the Knapping at Coshocton. Alright, so 5 minutes. I got 5 minutes to put some pressure flakes on this. Switch to a different pair of glasses. The final thinning is the hardest part of the whole process, other than the notching. Okay, where's my other glasses? So the hard part is over. I should probably clean up the mess. Oh, I see my glasses. Yeah, cleaning it up also helps me find the tools I need. This is a whole different mindset for the pressure flaking than what I was doing before. All right. Buried my new pressure flaker. So I'm going to work on symmetry and do the pressure flaking. And this is working okay, but I think I'm going to need an even bigger diamond file than this one to keep the abrading more silent. Yeah, the reason why I mentioned that is because someone said that on my videos the abrading makes a lot of noise, and he's wearing headphones or something, I guess. Compared to my voice, I guess the abrading is really loud. So he's got to turn down the volume. every time I abrade. I'm assuming. So I'm trying to keep that in mind for future videos that are instructional, because I can't do the voiceover on the instructional video. It's got to be narration while I'm napping, or I lose touch with what I'm doing and what's happening. I can't remember every obstacle or everything that was being done during the reduction of the piece, so I cannot narrate it accurately as a voiceover. See, as a voiceover, I could tone down the background noises with the software I have before I do the voiceover. But I'm not going to be able to do that with the instructional videos like I thought I was going to be able to do. I was going to voice over one of the other videos, and I'm saying to myself, I forgot some of this and why I did this, why I did that in the video. So I can't narrate if I forget. It's got to be done. The narration's got to be done with the napping on the instruction or tutorial videos. Okay, so this is napping better than, let's say, silicified limestone, although that's what this might be. It's better. It's napping better than silicified limestone that I've napped before. Yeah. This is very similar to a fine-grained basalt. Closest thing I can compare it to. It's unusual material. Yeah. There's not much out there that's like this, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, and when you abrade it, those abraded edges are difficult to pressure flake. And it's unusual, especially with copper. Copper is usually very versatile, but it's slipping on this stuff where it's heavily abraded. Usually I don't have to worry about that. I can overcome it pretty easily. But on this stuff, it's slippery. How do you get over that? Just got to get used to it. And the subconscious takes over how your body deals with the slipperiness. I can't explain it. The subconscious takes over that subtle difference to overcome the difficulty. I don't know if I'm holding it more firmly, because the differences can be imperceptible. I usually say it's almost imperceptible, but sometimes the differences are imperceptible. I can't tell exactly what I'm doing to overcome that slipperiness on the dull edges. I'm assuming that I'm pushing harder, but that's only using a thought experiment and not in tune exactly with what's going on. I think that's what's going on. What else could be going on? I don't know. Let me think here. What else could it be that helps to overcome that? Well, maybe holding it more firmly so it doesn't wobble as much. Because you can have a little bit of wobble in it and still pressure flake, eliminating the wobble sometimes makes a big difference. I don't know if that's what I'm doing in this case. I think also I'm feeling like I'm pushing inward more. But that might not be a correct feeling. I mean, I might not be interpreting that feeling correctly. It could be just I'm just gripping it harder. So I do have to grip it harder when I push inward. But that's not the only reason why I grip it harder. You also grip it harder to reduce the loss of forces. So this is the final sharpening on the tip here. I'm not going to do much more sharpening on the tip than this. Yikes. That one crushed. It doesn't crush all that much, and it does sharpen pretty good, actually. Once you get used to it. It does wear down the copper, though, on the pressure flaking. Not so much on the indirect percussion or percussion, but on the pressure flaking, it does seem to wear out the tips quickly, or this tip anyway. I'm just picking at this now to sharpen it. Up near the tip, I was driving inward a little bit more. I do want to thin that down just a little bit more. No? Yes. Yeah, I can't do too much more thinning because it crushes the edge. Yeah. I can't have it too thin because the edge gets too thin and it starts to crush. Yeah. And it's not like a Dacite, because Dacite crushes easier than this. This doesn't crush all that easy. But when it does, eliminating the crushed area is not that easy on this material. It just tends to crush more and more. Whereas on Dacite, it'll crush a lot. But then it's not that difficult to get rid of the crushed area if you get real persnickety and do little bitty flakes. But this one, it looks like I have to damage control with fairly large flakes. I can't tiptoe through the tulips too much with this stuff. It doesn't like a lot of little flakes. It tends to make it feel kind of dull the more flakes I use. But I want it to look nice and neat and not all jaggedy. Why? I don't know. Yeah, if I'm sharpening it just to be sharp, it would probably be more jaggedy than this. Yeah, I'm seeing that the symmetry is off. But I don't want to take off from the blade, so I'm going to adjust the symmetry from down here. 37 minutes. Alright, so I'm going to end this segment because the The next part after this is the notching. I want to do a separate. I want to keep the notching separately on a separate segment. Come on, stop slipping. Yeah, if this is going to be, if it's going to be this slippery when it gets dull, when I'm doing the notching, and if the notching starts to stall, that's it. Pretty much out of luck on something like this. You have to use the file to restart the notches on something like this. On anything that is difficult to flake when it's the edges are dull, it's going to be difficult to notch. Yeah, some materials are relatively easy to flake when it's really dull, and those are both easy to sharpen and easy to notch, relatively speaking. So it's just the opposite when it's difficult to flake when it's got a dull edge. Okay, so that's this segment. I will continue on the next segment with the notching. All right.